first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the respectful kind. The kind that presses on your ears and makes you feel like you already lost. The CEO didn't sit down. She stayed standing at the head of the table, palms flat, shoulders squared. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. Apologize to my son. Right now. In front of everyone. Or clean out your desk. No buildup. No explanation. Just that. Her son sat 2 chairs to her left. Arms crossed, looking past me like I was a screensaver. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The decision had already been made somewhere else. I stayed seated for half a second too long. Then I stood because sitting felt like agreeing. My name is Marissa Cole, 32 years old. I had earned my seat at that table. I knew that. I also knew it didn't matter anymore. Someone at the far end shifted in their chair. Papers rustled. No one spoke. No one looked at me. The air smelled faintly like burnt coffee, the kind that sits too long in a warmer. I remember thinking how stupid it was that I noticed that. The CEO tilted her head, just slightly, waiting, patient, like she was giving me a courtesy. "This doesn't need to be complicated," she said. "You caused confusion. You undermined him. You fix it." I opened my mouth, closed it. There were about 10 different versions of myself fighting for control. The careful one, the angry one, the tired one, the version that just wanted to keep her job and go home and pretend this never happened. I thought about the last email I'd sent, the one I'd rewritten 3 times to make sure it didn't sound confrontational. I thought about how often I'd swallowed things because I didn't want to be labeled difficult or emotional or young. The CEO's gaze didn't move. Her son finally glanced at me then. Just for a second. There was a smile there. Small, confident, practiced. That was when I realized this wasn't about an apology. It was about obedience. I reached into my pocket and felt my phone. Solid. Warm. Heavier than it should have been. I took one breath, not a dramatic one. Just enough to keep my hand steady. "I can't do that," I said. The room tightened. The CEO's expression didn't change, but something hardened behind her eyes. "Then we're done here," she said. I nodded once. Not because I agreed, because I finally understood what kind of place this was. And because I already knew what I was going to do next. People like to assume I skipped steps. I didn't. I started here 6 years ago with a folding chair and a borrowed laptop because they hadn't ordered my equipment yet. I stayed late because no one told me not to. I learned systems nobody wanted to touch because they were legacy and ugly and always about to break. "You don't have to fix that tonight." My first manager told me once. "I know," I said, and I fixed it anyway. That pattern stuck. When I got promoted the first time, someone joked, "Guess youth is the new strategy." I laughed because laughing felt easier than correcting him. When it happened again, someone else said, "Must be nice." I didn't answer that time. I earned my seat by being the person they called when things went wrong. Not loudly, not publicly. Just quietly reliable. I documented everything. I double-checked numbers. I caught mistakes before they turned into messes someone else had to explain. "You're good." A senior director told me after a long night once, "You're just young." I nodded like that made sense. Being young meant my ideas got questioned twice. Being young meant my emails got reworded by older men before being forwarded. Being young meant I learned to bring receipts before opinions. When Liam arrived, people looked at me differently, like my role was suddenly temporary. Like I was a placeholder until someone louder showed up. "Help him get up to speed," the CEO said in passing. Not a request, a directive. Liam smiled at me the first day. "Glad to have you on my side," he said. I didn't correct him then either. I should have. I was never on his side. I was on the side of the work. I just didn't realize yet how lonely that could get. By the time I understood that doing your job well doesn't protect you from politics, it was already too late. I walked out of the boardroom and back to my office. Heart still racing, replaying every promotion, every late night. Every time I told myself it would speak for itself. Have you ever looked back and realized you trained people to underestimate how hard you worked, Just by never complaining, Liam Caldwell arrived on a Monday and acted like the building had been waiting for him. He was introduced in a quick email, joining us to lead strategic operations. No mention of experience, no learning curve, just authority. Dropped into place. He stopped by my desk that afternoon, didn't ask if I had time. "So you're Marissa," he said, smiling like we were already on the same team. "Mom says you know how things actually work around here." I didn't love that sentence. I smiled anyway. "I can walk you through the basics," I said. He waved a hand. "I'll pick it up fast. I always do." In the first meeting, he talked more than anyone else, used words like streamline and optimize without explaining what they touched. When I pushed back gently, he cut me off. "Let's not overcomplicate this," he said, looking around the room. Not at me. "We need momentum." Afterward, a colleague leaned over and whispered, "He's confident." I didn't answer. The confidence wasn't the problem. It was the way the room bent around him. The way questions softened when he didn't know an answer. The way mistakes turned into learning moments instead of issues. Once, when I corrected a number, he laughed. "Relax. That's why you're here." That was the first time it clicked. I wasn't a peer. I was a safety net. Later that week, I heard him on the phone in the hallway. "Yeah, she's sharp," he said. "A little intense, but useful." Useful. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at my screen, wondering when competence became something you borrowed instead of respected. Do titles mean anything when the person wearing them never has to prove they deserve them? The first shortcut came wrapped in a smile. "We can shave weeks off this," Liam said in a planning meeting, tapping the table like he was bored. "Cut the review cycle in half. Skip redundant checks." "They're not redundant," I said. I kept my voice even. "They exist because they caught failures before." He looked at me like I'd missed the point. "We're not building rockets here." "We kind of are," I said. "Just quieter ones." The room went still. Not tense. Curious. Like they were waiting to see how he'd respond. Liam leaned back. "This is old thinking. We're burning time and money. Time and money are cheaper than fixing damage later," I said. Or explaining it. He smiled again. "You worry too much." I opened my laptop and pulled up the compliance notes. "These steps are required. If we bypass them, we're exposed." Exposed how he asked. Legally, operationally, personally. I said, "For whoever signs off." That last part landed. I saw it in his eyes. After the meeting, he caught up to me in the hallway. "You didn't need to push like that," he said. Still smiling, still calm. "I did." I said, "That's my job." He tilted his head. "Your job is to support forward progress. My job is to keep us from making mistakes we can't undo." I said. He stepped closer. Not threatening, familiar. "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "Don't be the roadblock. It's not a good look." That word again. "Look, I sent a follow-up email that afternoon. Clear, polite, documented. I reread it 3 times before hitting send, stripping out anything that could be read as sharp." Liam replied with one line, "Let's circle back." We didn't. Instead, the next draft showed up with half the safeguards gone, and my name copied on the thread like that meant consent. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, weighing every possible outcome, knowing that once you speak up too often, people stop hearing the content and start hearing the tone. Have you ever stayed quiet because you knew being right might cost you more than being wrong? I found it by accident. I was skimming the latest approval packet before sending it to compliance, half on autopilot, when my eyes snagged on the signature line. "Approved by Marissa Cole." I stared at it, refreshed the page, scrolled back up, same thing. I hadn't approved it. I hadn't even seen this version. I walked straight to Liam's office. Didn't knock. "Why is my name on this?" I asked, holding my laptop up like evidence. He barely glanced at the screen. "Oh, that, I repeated. "You attached my approval to changes I flagged." He leaned back in his chair, calm, almost amused. "You reviewed the framework. This is just an iteration." "No," I said. "This removes required checks." I said that clearly. He shrugged. You might be remembering it differently. That landed harder than I expected. I documented it. I said, in writing. Right, he said. And I took that into account. But decisions move fast at this level. At this level, I said, or your level. His smile tightened. You're getting defensive. I felt heat creep up my neck. I'm getting accurate. He stood then, walked around his desk, lowered his voice like he was doing me a favor. Look, no one's trying to screw you over. But when you raise concerns, you have to trust leadership to balance them. You used my name? I said, that's not balance. It's alignment. He said, optics matter? There it was again. Optics. I went back to my desk shaking. Not visibly. Just inside, I opened my sent emails, read my notes. Everything was there, clear, professional. Ignored. I started replaying conversations in my head, second-guessing my tone, my phrasing, my memory. That's the part that scared me the most. Not the risk, the doubt. Later that afternoon, I overheard him on a call. Yeah, Marissa signed off. We're covered. Covered. I didn't confront him again that day. I told myself I'd handle it carefully, that I needed to be smart. That blowing up would only hurt me. Still, I saved copies, quietly, every version, every timestamp. I labeled the folder something boring so it wouldn't draw attention. That night, lying awake, I kept thinking about how easy it was to rewrite reality when you had the power to attach someone else's name to your choices. What would you do if the thing protecting someone else was your reputation? And no one asked your permission first. No one announced the shift. It just happened. I'd walk into a meeting and conversations would trail off mid-sentence. Someone would clear their throat. Someone else would suddenly remember they had another call. Hey, I said once. Trying to sound normal. Hey, Mark from finance replied. Already looking past me. He used to ask my opinion. Used to wait. In a status meeting later that week, Liam talked through decisions I hadn't seen yet. He clicked through slides like they were settled facts. We're aligned on this, he said. I interrupted. I haven't reviewed this version. He didn't look at me. We discussed the direction. That's not the same thing, I said. A pause. Short? Sharp? Let's take that offline, he said, and kept going. Afterward, a junior analyst caught up to me near the elevators. I thought you'd signed off, she said. Quietly. Not accusing. Confused. I didn't. I said. She nodded, like she believed me. Then she added. Liam said it was already handled. Handled. That word followed me everywhere. Emails stopped including me unless absolutely necessary. When I asked questions, answers came late, clipped, or not at all. You're being intense. Someone joked after I pushed back in a review. Relax. I am relaxed. I said, I wasn't. At lunch one day, I sat down at a table where a few people were already eating. The conversation died. One of them checked their phone. Another stood up. I've got to run, he said. I sat there alone with my tray, feeling ridiculous for caring, feeling worse for pretending I didn't. The CEO passed me in the hallway once. She smiled, polite, distant. Everything good, she asked. Yes, I said, because that's what you say when you know the answer doesn't matter. That night, I stayed late again. Not to prove anything, just to feel useful. The building emptied out around me. I listened to the hum of the lights and tried to remember the last time someone had backed me up in a room. I wasn't being fired. Not yet. I was being erased. Slowly, quietly, in a way that made it hard to point to any single moment and say, there, that's when it happened. Have you ever felt invisible in a room where you technically belonged? I stayed late because leaving felt worse. The office was mostly dark. My phone was at 5%. I went back to my desk to grab the charger I'd forgotten, already half thinking about whether any of this was worth it. That's when I heard voices. Her voice first, calm, controlled. The kind she used when she wanted something to sound reasonable. She's pushing back again, the CEO said. It's becoming a pattern. Liam laughed. Not loud. Comfortable. She's nervous. That's all. Nervous people make mistakes, she said. And mistakes need owners. I stopped walking. I stood there like my feet had decided for me. What happens if compliance asks questions? Liam asked. They will, she said. And when they do, we'll explain that Marissa was responsible for final review. I felt my stomach drop. Hard. But she didn't approve the changes, he said. There was a pause. Short, almost thoughtful. That's not how it will look, she replied. Her name is on the documents. I pressed my hand against the wall, not to steady myself, to make sure I was still there. What if she pushes back? Liam asked. She won't, his mother said. She wants to stay employed. Silence. Then footsteps. Closer. I reached into my pocket without thinking. My phone was already in my hand. I stared at the screen. 5%. No charger. My thumb hovered over the record button. I hesitated. Not because I wasn't sure, because I knew exactly what this meant. Once I did this, I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't unhear it. I couldn't unknow it. I hit record. My hand shook. The screen dimmed. I held my breath like that mattered. We'll frame it as a breakdown in communication. The CEO said, she's young, inexperienced. It happens. Liam chuckled. She'll hate that. She'll survive, his mother said. Or she won't. Their voices kept going, calm and confident, while something inside me went very still. I stopped the recording when they moved again, slipped back to my desk, plugged in my phone, sat there staring at nothing, heart pounding. Knowing I had crossed a line I could never uncross. Would you document the truth if it meant you could never go back to how things were? I didn't sleep much after that. I started pulling files before anyone noticed a pattern. Old versions. New versions. Timestamps that didn't line up. Emails where my objections sat politely ignored. I saved everything twice. Once on the server. Once somewhere only I knew about. I kept my face neutral during the day. Nodded in meetings. Took notes. Let Liam talk. Looks good, he said once, glancing at a document I hadn't approved. I said nothing. I wrote the time down. The ally came later, not someone I'd planned on. Alex from compliance. Mid-level, quiet, always precise. Can I ask you something off the record? I said. Standing in his doorway, he hesitated. That depends. I handed him a printout. Not the recording, just a comparison. Original language. Revised language. My name at the bottom. He read it slowly. Didn't interrupt. This isn't clean, he said finally. No, I said, it's not. He leaned back. If this goes where I think it's going, they won't protect you. I know. I said, they'll say you misunderstood, or that you're emotional, or that you wanted attention. I know. I said again. He studied me for a second. I believe you. That almost broke me. Not in a dramatic way. Just a small crack in my chest I hadn't noticed forming. But believing you isn't the same as saving you, he added. If you push this, it could end your career here. I think it already has, I said. He nodded. Then document everything. And don't tell anyone else you're doing it. I wasn't planning to. I said, when I left his office, my hands were steady for the first time in weeks. Not because things were better, because I wasn't alone anymore. When the risk is real, who do you trust first, yourself or someone else? The boardroom felt smaller this time. Same table, same faces, different air. The CEO didn't waste time. We're here to resolve an internal issue, she said. Eyes locked on me. Marissa, you'll apologize to my son for the confusion you caused. Then we move forward. Liam didn't look at me. He stared at the table like this was already done. I didn't cause confusion. I said, my voice surprised me. Steady. I raised concerns. She exhaled. Sharp. This isn't a debate. It is for me. I said. A chair scraped. Someone shifted. The CEO folded her arms. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I know. I said. I've been doing that a lot lately. Liam finally looked up. Just say it. He said, not angry. Annoyed. We all want to get back to work. I stood. Not fast? Not dramatic? My knees felt weak anyway. I can't apologize for something I didn't do. I said, but I can explain. The CEO shook her head. Sit down. Instead, I reached into my pocket, Pulled out my phone. A couple of people noticed. A couple didn't. What are you doing? She asked. Letting everyone hear the part I wasn't supposed to. I said. I connected my phone to the screen. The cable clicked into place. Too loud. Marissa, she said. Warning now. Don't. I hit play. Her voice filled the room first. Calm? Certain. Talking about patterns, about ownership, about how my name made things easier. Then Liam's voice. Asking what happens if compliance asks questions, laughing when she said they'd frame it as a communication breakdown. No one moved. No one spoke. When it ended, the silence stayed. I looked at the CEO. She was staring straight ahead. Not at me, not at the board, not at her son. Liam shifted in his chair, just once. Like he'd suddenly realized he was sitting in the wrong place. I won't apologize, I said quietly, but I will stop pretending. Do you think truth is still powerful in rooms built on control? They called it an internal review, then a compliance inquiry, then a series of meetings I wasn't invited to but somehow still felt. A director stopped me in the hallway. You did what you had to do, he said, not meeting my eyes. Another voice, different day. This didn't have to get so dramatic. I nodded. I'd learned nodding wastes less energy than arguing. Liam disappeared from meetings first, then from email threads. The CEO stayed. Quieter, sharper, like someone counting exits. HR finally called me in. This could take time. The woman said, your role may change. Or end. I said. She didn't correct me. That night, I sat on my couch with my phone in my hand. The recording was still there. Same file name, same weight, proof, leverage, insurance. I stared at it longer than I expected. I'd spent weeks telling myself I needed it, that keeping it meant control, that deleting it would be reckless. But control is exhausting. Carrying truth like a weapon wears you down. So I deleted it, not because anyone asked, not because I was scared, because I was done letting that moment define every decision after it. I don't know what happens next. Maybe I stay. Maybe I leave. Maybe this follows me longer than I want. What I do know is this document early. Trust your instincts when something feels off, and don't confuse silence with safety. Silence only teaches people how far they can push you. If this story hits something familiar, talk about it. Share it. Compare notes. These things thrive in isolation. I didn't win. I didn't lose. I chose myself, and that choice costs something every single time.